domains that research tells us are most important to nursing home residents. These include activities, autonomy, dignity and respect, food, living environment, and staff interactions. This kit includes questionnaires for each of these domains. The questionnaire in the kit can be customized for the domain that your residents identify.
In terms of this group and their comments, I think that the underlying issue for them at this time, when you were speaking with them, was dignity and their sense of self-respect.
And once this was touched upon, every resident in the group did have a similar experience to share as related to this.
Having selected the domain of dignity and respect, the team begins to customize the questionnaire that they will use in interviews with residents in step 3.
Maybe we could take a look and see if the questions that the questionnaire automatically has in it cover what we would use as measures, and if there's any others that we could include that, you know, based on the resident-specific examples.
Okay.
I mean, certainly the third question on this questionnaire is, you are dressed the way you want to be dressed. That's perfect.
I think the first question also speaks to being left in the dark.
Catherine relates the story of the woman being left in the dark to the statement, "When staff come to your room, they explain why they are there." The team now examines whether there are issues from the focus group that are not covered by the existing questions.
I mean, we might be able to create a couple of questions that are more specific to this group.
The team spends a moment focused on the man who discussed being given a cheese sandwich for dinner.
For him, a question could be something around like a meal that suits his appetite.
Our staff offers me a meal that suits my appetite, which involves the
This statement works for 2 reasons. It uses simple wording and deals with one specific experience.
rather than tells me.
Next, the team discusses a way to create a statement that captures other residents' comments, especially the comment about having the lights turned out and being told to go to bed.
It's almost as if the residents want to be asked what they want, right? And how could we turn that into a question that might pull in the dignity, respect issue? How about staff ask me rather than tell me what to do?
That's
or
perfect.
some version of that, but as a start.
It really covers many areas. That's a good question.
The team agrees to add this statement: staff ask me rather than tell me what to do. Next, they create a final statement related to the woman who wants staff to take an interest in her. The team now has a questionnaire with 8 statements to use during resident interviews in Step 3.
Good morning, Ms. Henry. I'd like to start by asking you a series of questions about your quality of life here at Cobble Hill.
In the third step of this process, staff members use the customized questionnaire to conduct resident interviews. The interview is broken into 2 parts. The first part asks residents to answer a series of multiple-choice questions. In the second part, the interviewer probes for more detail about particular issues. After explaining that the conversation is confidential, Catherine begins.
So please feel free to be candid. How important is it to you that when staff comes to your room, they explain why they're there?
Oh, it's very important.
It's very important to
Yes.
you? Okay. And you're
Since quality of life is so subjective, you will first ask residents how important the statement is to them. Then you will ask how often does it happen.
How often does it happen here that when staff comes to your room, they explain why they are there? Does that happen? Does it never happen? Does it happen some of the time?
Some of the time.
It should take about 10 minutes to get through the first part of the questionnaire. If a resident wants to explain an answer, ask her to wait until the second part of the interview.
How important is it to you that the staff takes an interest in your individual needs?
It's very important.
And how often does that happen here?
I should say most of the time they do.
Most of the time they do. Okay.
Well, it's all dependent. You know, if they're too busy, then it's a different thing.
Yeah, they're too busy.
Yes,
Okay. All right.
because-
So I think we'll talk more about that in a little bit.
You have to listen carefully for key phrases and words that may be used so that you can tease out from them exactly what they may be feeling or experiencing about the care they receive or the quality of life that they're having.
Catherine and Ms. Henry have completed the first section, consisting of short answers. Now Catherine turns to the second part of the interview, which will probably last about 20 minutes. Now the resident has an opportunity to give more detail. The interviewer will pick at least 3 questions to return to help her understand the depth and breadth of any problem.
You want to find out a lot more detail about those issues that residents have problems about, issues that they find very, very important to them and that never happens or infrequently happens.
There are additional ways to choose the question.
Either questions where the interviewer wants to get more information. There are questions about where the resident has seemed uncomfortable with the answer or really had something more to say.
You mentioned to me that it's very important to you that the staff takes an interest in your individual needs. And then you also said that it happens most of the time, but you mentioned that sometimes staff are too busy
Yes.
to do that.
Yes.
And I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about that.
Like if you have somewhere to go. Sometimes, like I usually go out with my children, and then I need help. And sometimes they're too busy with another patient in another room, then I have to wait for them to come to me.
Right.
Sometimes it's aggravating.
I don't want you to mention, obviously, any names to me, but have you ever heard of other residents mentioning similar problems of having to wait or be...
Ms. Henry talks about a situation with her roommate.
Well, last night, for instance, my roommate, the nurse told her, well, she's a substitute now.
Okay.
The nurse told her that she would be back at 9 o'clock to put her in bed. She never come until 11.
Until 11.
That's right.
Okay.
And this lady have a fractured back, hip.
Okay.
And it's very painful, her sitting up all day long,
Sure.
you know,
Sure.
and she wanted to go into bed.
Did she, between those 2 hours, did she try and have someone come in and help her to bed?
Nobody didn't come in and help her.
Nobody didn't come and help her. When the nurse came back in at 11, what did she say?
She said she's sorry that she's late, but she was, you know, she's new to the floor. See, it's hard when it is substitutes. They don't know the patients, they don't know, you know.
You get a lot of new people.
A lot of new people, especially on the weekend.
Does that change the quality of your life here, having so many new people on the weekends?
Well, it do, because, you know, they're not moving as fast as the regular.
Okay.
Everything is slower and at a slower pace.
When choosing residents for the interviews, look for the kind of diversity that was important in the focus group, interviewing at least 10% of the population.
How important is it to you when staff come into your room, they explain to you why they are there?
Very important.
Very important. How often does that happen here?
Every night.
Every night? How important is it to you that you are able to dine in a way you want to dine?
Very important.
Very important. How often does that happen here?
3 times a day.
3 times a day?
Yes.
When a resident gives numerous positive answers, the interviewer needs to know that this is reliable information. Often, positive answers reflect the resident's true experiences.
How often does that happen?
But sometimes residents who are extremely loyal or who find it distressing to say negative things about other people may give positive answers, although their actual experience may be negative.
Okay. I wanted to go into a little bit more detail now about some of your responses.
Okay.
Mr. Kirkland,
Yes.
you told me earlier that it's very important to you that you're able to dine in a way that you want to dine, and that this happens all the time. I wanted to know if you can give me 2 to 3 examples of when this happens and how this happens.
If the resident can give examples of real experiences, then the interviewer can assume that the answers are reliable.
Nice and quiet.
It's a nice, quiet place.
Yes. Nice, soft music.
And it's nice music
Good.
playing.
Yes. To eat too. They serve you a meal and within reasonable time.
Jennifer confirms that Mr. Kirkland does dine in the way that he wants to.
Also, you said that when it's very important to you that when staff come to your room, they explain why they're there, and that this happens on a regular basis. Can you give me an example of what they explain to you?
I'm a diabetic, so they come in.
As an example, Mr. Kirkland says that when staff members come in to do a finger stick or enter to give medication, they always explain why they are there. Because residents tend to focus on the day shift, Jennifer probes.
What I want to know is, does this happen on all the shifts? The day, the evening, the night?
Well, the third shift, they're coming, they have to wake up. Some of them got a little attitude, but it's understandable.
Why is it understandable?
Well, the job is tension.
At first, he said people always tell him why they're there. After probing, Jennifer realizes this does not happen on a regular basis. She needs to know what is happening and asks for more detail.
Tell me a little bit more about the tension. Is that referring to attitude or
Attitude.
of the staff on the third shift? Can you give me a couple of examples of that?
Well, every night you deal with somebody new, and the attitude is different. Their personality is different.
Are you saying on a pretty regular basis that you're not having regular staff? Is
Right.
it
It's not the regular staff.
not the regular staff that you're used to?
Right,
So it's constantly changing.
right. And that creates a problem.
It's creating problems. And tell me about the attitude that you're receiving.
For instance, last night, I wanted to sleeping pill, and I didn't get it until 12:30.
You didn't get it until 12:30?
Right.
What time did you ask for the medication?
Well, it's supposed to give the sleeping pill about 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock, I didn't get it.
You didn't get it?
Then they told her she gave it to me already, and she hadn't given it to me. And I was laying in the bed, and I was miserable. That's not the same crew now. A different person just about every night.
Mr. Kirkland goes on to say that as soon as the day shift comes, things go more smoothly on the unit.
And that means a lot.